16/2018. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing afterwards for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for Officer Michael Chestnut and Vera Adams, who passed away in the tragic events of Sunday morning in Weymouth. Thank you. Public announcements. Wow, it's loud in here. Jim, you don't have anything, right?
Nothing.
Tim?
I do. From the Library Committee, the Teen Advisory Board is sponsoring an ongoing food drive to support the Abington Food Pantry. They welcome your donation of non-profitable food items at their summer reading kickoff on June 21st and throughout the summer. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Oh, ready?
I forgot your name for a second.
No, that's okay, don't call me sir. Abington celebrates disco fundraiser, Saturday, July 21st, 2018, from 7 to 11 at Timberlane's Bowling Alley. Order online or contact Michelle Christian at abingtoncelebrates@gmail.com with the band Motor Booty Affair coming to the Abington Summer Concerts on July 22nd. Abington Celebrates has caught disco fever. Let's all take a trip back in time for a groovy night of bowling, dancing, refreshments, 50-50 raffle, and dynamite contests. Can you dig it? Funktastic. Now dig out those bell-bottoms, leisure suits, afros, polyester, etc. and join the fun. Prizes will be awarded for grooviest costume, best 70s hair, I would have won that, but I won't be able to attend, widest pant bottoms, most tubular team. Proceeds from this fundraiser will help keep free family fun Abington Celebrates events going, such as Flag Day, Founders Day, Oktoberfest, and Christmas at Island Grove, as well as keeping the fireworks going in Abington. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There you go.
Nope.
My apologies.
No, that
That just went on forever and a day.
was groovy, thank you.
I like it. Well, he likes it. See, that was groovy, huh?
And I just want to note that that band is coming Sunday to the bandstand, and you don't want to miss it. It's probably the best show you're going to see. It's a lot of fun. And if it rains, it's going to be in the high school auditorium. This band, I keep saying it, but they spent twice as much as they've ever spent for any band before, and they're coming from Maine. I'm sorry, coming from the planet Funktar, but they're really good, and you got to enjoy them. So please,
So you get
please come
Saturday
down.
and Sunday?
Saturday night, the pre-party, and then Sunday. So, you have an announcement?
I do. Given the circumstances that happened in Weymouth yesterday, I just want to put out a thank you to the EMTs, the fire department, and the police department in the town of Abington, and in the town of Weymouth for all they do for the citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last announcement is everyone is invited to remember and honor Private Louis V. Dorsey. If you know the American Legion in Abington, the post is named after him. It would be the 100th anniversary of his passing. He died in the Second Battle of Marne in France in World War I. So that's at his gravesite in St. Patrick's Cemetery in Rockland, Monday, July 23rd, 2018, 6:30 p.m. So if you're able to attend that. Thank you very much. First thing is public appointments in FY 2019 appointments. Public announcement, that was that.
Okay.
Public appointments, 2019 appointments and reappointments. So we have in front of us some appointments. I will read them off, and if anybody wants to recuse themselves from any of them, or if anybody has any issues. Conservation Commission, we have a note from Joanne DeMack Harding. She would like to switch from an associate member to a voting member since there's an opening. On the Council on Aging, we have three and an associate that the Council on Aging is recommending. Elizabeth Slinger, reappointment. Jack Brown, new appointment. Mary Lou Graham, new appointment. And Janet McDonald, associate appointment. From the Community Preservation Committee, Catherine Shaw has asked to be on that. Just a note, too, that Catherine Shaw is actually on the Historical Commission, and the Historical Commission has one member on the CPA, so she would like to be that one. We met with the Historical Commission, so there will still be an opening on the Community Preservation Committee. If our board votes to appoint her, she would be the appointee from. I don't even think we need to appoint it because the Historical Commission has already appointed her, so there'll
you'd
still be an
still have
opening.
the selectman vacancy.
All right, so we can actually You can actually skip that one if the board's agreeable, because she has been appointed by the Historical Commission to serve on that board. Park and Rec, Rory Manning was in a reappointment, and the Sage Committee, Kevin Damasio, is a new appointment. Does anybody have any comments on that at all?
I'd like to recluse myself from the Park and Rec appointment, given the fact it's my daughter.
Okay, so if it's agreeable to the board, we'll vote on all of them. We'll hold back Rory Manning, so we can vote separately on that. Any questions or concerns about any of the appointments? I'll entertain a motion with the exception of Rory Manning.
The motion that we approve the appointments to the Conservation Commission, Council of the Aging, Committee and Preservation Committee, and Sage Committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. I will entertain a motion from anybody but Robert Manning for Rory Manning.
I'll make the motion to reappoint Rory Manning to Parks and Recreation Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And he abstained from that vote. Is abstain and recuse the same thing?
So kind of, yeah. Ask the lawyer.
Okay, good enough. We got a couple of them. We're all set. I think we have at least 3 in the audience. So we'll
At
know.
least 3, no, we have 4. Give me 4.
Okay, so we know if we do something wrong. Public comment, we open it up to the public comment. If somebody wants to speak on some of the issues we're talking about tonight, although I will open the floor at that point anyways, but if somebody has any discussion on any agenda items, if not, yes, Mr. Shea, can you come up to the microphone, please?
Joseph Shea, 3 Wyman Road. I'd like to speak on the special municipal employees issue. It's been an issue for several years. Many years it was never an issue. If somebody had a position, specific problem that I'm dealing with myself personally, I work for the assessor's office. I'm also a member of the advisory board for South Weymouth Naval Air Station. Traditionally, that position has been special municipal employee. If I do not have a special municipal employee status, I can be accused of conflict of interest, the way the law reads. That issue comes up on other positions. We have people who may serve on 2 separate committees. They can be accused of special municipal employee. And I have been twice accused of various things falsely by somebody of anonymous persons. Once being on too many committees, some which didn't even exist, and a second time for a conflict of interest, which also did not exist. You do not want to get something from the State Ethics Commission saying you're being charged. Regardless whether any truth or not, and the accusation could be anonymous, it often is. It's a very nerve-wracking process to go through. I know myself, if the special municipal employee status is not awarded for the advisory board at the air base, I will resign immediately. I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to get called up. And there's other people in this town who have this situation. For many years, this wasn't an issue. Matter of fact, I believe that when the issue first arose, we got a letter from Copman and Page basically advising the town to give the special municipal status Wiley. I believe Bob Soper has attached a copy of that letter to his request to be given special municipal employee status. I was just all the members look at it. I think the conclusion of Copman and Page at that time was it was the best way to avoid problems both for the town and for the people. We have a lot of people who volunteer their time in this town, and for one reason or another could have a problem. For example, Russell Wheatley volunteered for the Tricentennial Committee. He was a valuable member. If Russell did not have that special municipal employee status for being on the Tricentennial Committee, he would have been in violation every time he went to a hearing or was a client. And somebody could accuse him of conflict of interest. We have at least one person I can see in this room here who's on 2 separate committees. And somebody could accuse her of conflict of interest. There is no conflict of interest, but somebody can file that accusation. I would suggest strongly, we have at least 2 people employed in the town hall people serve in multiple jobs, part-time jobs. If they are not given special municipal employee status, they would have to give up one of those jobs because it would be a conflict, somebody could accuse them of conflict of interest. I would suggest that the Board of Selectmen give the special municipal status to those positions that have gotten them in past years unless there's a specific problem with that position, or the person holding that position, whatever they do. But I think to revoke that status is to hurt the people who volunteer in this town, people who try to help, and it is all. And either they're going to have a choice of not doing something for the town, or they're going to have a choice of risking being sued, accused of conflicts of interest. Again, often anonymously. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open up the floor, is the board okay with moving this item forward to discuss it now? Since
I have no objection.
it's item 4 on the agenda, but I just want to make sure. So before I open it up to other people, let me just...
No.
Everybody's okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. We sent in mailings out, I believe, to everyone that was reappointed to committees and asked them if they were interested in a special municipal employee. I think, was it just the people that received it last year that we asked them, or do you...
The current members, yes.
Current members.
Current members that have status.
All right. After soliciting requests for applications from boards, committees, officials for special municipal employee status, the following have made application for that status: Griffin's Dairy Committee, Abington Cultural Council, Town Moderator, Planning Board Secretary, Southfield Redevelopment Advisory Committee, Administrative Assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Conservation Commission. I believe that's just one person. Board of Library Trustees, Finance Committee, Recording Secretary, School Building Committee, Planning Board, Abington Summer Concerts Committee, Council on Aging. The applications are attached.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody from the audience want to say anything before we speak? I'm looking at you, Sean, but...
How you gonna do this, individually or a couple?
No, we would do it individually. We go right, well, I mean, if somebody makes a motion to do them all, to provide special municipal employee status to all of them, that's fine, too.
I read this, and I think the easiest thing to do is just grant it to everybody and be done with it. I mean, it's helping the people, it's no cost item to us. I don't see the downside to this, downside to not giving it to everybody.
I do agree with you, it is the easiest thing to do.
If nobody else has anything to say, I'll make a motion to grant it to everybody who's, falls under the parameters that's eligible for it. And just
Well, everybody who works for the town, volunteers for the town, I believe, is eligible for it.
I have no problem with that. If it's a protection we're giving to the people working for us or volunteering for us, then I think,
Well, I think the special municipal employee status is a protection to the town, that you only serve one master, and that is to the town. If you run for office, if you're appointed, you're supposed to serve the town, and only the town. That's my feeling, so. You do know that the Board of Selectmen is not allowed
Right.
special municipal employee status.
yeah, we're not allowed to up to a year after we get off, too.
And I'm sure that you, just as Bob and myself, serve on numerous committees. Granted, I am only a retail worker. I do not have a law degree, or I'm not a architect or anything like that, so I don't come before boards in that capacity. But I feel that, and I believe our board, as a policy, voted to do it in very rare instances. I can read the policy. It's complicated. It's long. But if you guys want to discuss it a little more, or if you want to act on his motion, that's fine, too.
I just want to point out that we missed this last year, and we're supposed to do this on an annual basis, the review. Whether we grant it or not grant it, we're supposed to do a review every year. That's part of our responsibility. So we did miss this last year. The last appointments that we did approve were 2016. So it's important that we look at this and make a decision one way or the other how we want to move forward, so.
And it's granted to, not just to individuals, in other words,
Positions.
right, if one member of a board applies for it, the whole board gets it.
Right. I
I'm
understand
just going to read the two paragraphs that point out to me the importance of it. As the State Ethics Commission states, citizen towns are entitled to undivided loyalty by their municipal employees. The Board of Selectmen strongly believes that in order to promote public confidence in the administration of the town government, a municipal employee's loyalty must lie first with the town, and the special municipal status should only be granted in very limited circumstances. The board is of the opinion that, in general, positions, committees, and boards that set public policy, have regulatory authority, or have appointing authority should not be granted special municipal employee status. The Board of Selectmen also believes that there are occasional circumstances that can arise where a position, board, or committee may benefit from a person's expertise or knowledge in a particular field or professional. In those limited circumstances, special municipal employee status may be warranted. And that was adopted in 2012 and revised in 2014. Obviously, I know it's a new board since then, but that's the Board of Selectmen, Abington Board of Selectmen's policy. Yes, can you please come on the microphone again, please? Yes.
I understand that the new policy in 2012 was caused a good deal of controversy and issues. However, since then, a large number of people have been appointed, which probably exceeds the parameter in 2012. The other thing I would suggest, if you read that, which is a policy, you also read the Copeland and Page letter attached to Bob Soper's thing, because I would think that you would also want to hear what town council had to say on the subject, and I believe that was in 2012. I would think that'd be very important for the members of the board to hear that one also.
Okay, I think we have that in our packet.
Gotcha.
We do.
Multiple times.
It's from this is actually from 2014, if this is the same one that we're talking about.
Yes, it is.
2014.
February.
This notes, this is a highlighted section, I'll read that for the benefit of the people in the audience in TV land. It says, I also note, this is from Brian Riley, Copeland Page. I also note that the State Ethics Commission is in favor of having as many eligible boards or offices as possible given the special municipal employee designation, primarily because it increases the field of residents that can volunteer to take a municipal office and eliminates some categories of violations that have nothing to do with intentional wrongdoing. In summary, these chapters can make it difficult for someone that conducts private business in town to serve in a town office without running afoul of their restrictions, but those restrictions are lessened for a special municipal employee. Any comments?
Other than Jim's.
Is that the opinion of our current town council?
I don't think we asked for an opinion. I don't know if any of our town council is willing to give an opinion tonight. They're smiling, but you come out to Mike, if you're...
Thank you, good evening. Through you, Mr.
I'm sorry to
Chair.
put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. My name is Greg Corbo from KP Law, formerly Copeland and Page, town council to the town of Abington, the same town council that was here in 2014, although I did not write that particular letter. As town council, we wouldn't take a position as to whether the town should or should not make certain positions or all positions special municipal employee positions. I think the letter that was quoted stated that the Ethics Commission supports such a determination. But, you know, really is a matter of policy for the board to decide, and the board can do that either on a position-by-position basis or, you know, for all eligible positions generally. As has been pointed out here, designated certain positions as special municipal employee positions does give them greater flexibility, primarily in two areas. First, in their ability to represent private interests in front of other town boards and entities, not, of course, their own board that they sit on, and then also in their ability to hold multiple positions within the town. And what the special municipal employee designation does is it relaxes some of those limitations, and as pointed out in the letter, sort of opens up the pool of applicants that you can draw from in deciding whether or not to appoint someone to a position, who may otherwise not be interested because they from time to time have to go in front of other boards or committees of the town. And so I should just point out, though, that it's not every employee that qualifies. There are only certain categories of employees who would qualify, and that is, you have to be either not paid, hold a part-time position which allows you to work at another job during normal working hours, or were not paid by the city or town for more than 800 working hours, approximately 20 hours per week, during the preceding 365 days. So it's not necessarily everybody in the town who would qualify for this, but it's a certain, limited number of part-time, either unpaid or low-paid officials who, frankly, have to do other things, in order to make a living, and from time to time may end up coming before the town or may end up holding more than one position for the town.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Corbo? No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. All right, there's a motion.
Excuse me?
There's a motion on the floor. Without a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, with a motion with a second. Does anybody else want to talk about it?
I don't, I'm sure it's confusing. I would hate to lose some people, if they don't have this designation, but I don't know, or maybe I'm not understanding what not having it, how will hurt them. I just, people talking about them or something like that, I mean, that happens to all of us. I just don't, I don't know, but.
Well, we're going to find out in a second.
Okay.
You're about to get your
But I agree with you also. I mean, be sitting on Board of Selectmen, Summer Concerts Committee, Celebrates Committee, Historical Commission, I mean, even if I wanted it, I couldn't get it, and I don't think there's any conflict in any of those boards, but, go ahead, right down the line, please. Yeah, Bob?
Yeah. Excuse me, just before you speak. It was pointed out to me over the last 2 weeks when this conversation came up, the importance of understanding that I've lived in the town 25 years, and I look at the people who volunteer in the town, and it's been said to me more than once that you're on this one, you're on that one, you're on this one, you're on that one. And it's kind of true, unfortunately, that the same faces show up pretty much in a lot of different places in the town to do the work. And this is in one of those conditions where we have the same faces doing multiple tasks in the work. And it was pointed out to me, again, over the last several weeks on several occasions, how they feel it's important for them to have this designation to do their job. And so, as much as the declaration of special status, and I don't understand the declaration like you so much, but I do understand their fear, and I'm been a municipal employee over 33 years with the state. I understand the fear. So I always found this one, ever since I got my hands dirty in the Board of Selectmen pool of involvement, as I've tried to get as much information from as many people who have worked in this town for as long as they've worked in this town to understand what I should be doing here. And so I believe there's a reason why this is here. I believe there's a reason why some people have to have this, and I think it's our duty as Board of Selectmen to do our annual responsibility to review the work, but I also think it's our duty to help those people that are willing to volunteer for this town, to give them what they think they need to make sure they're not, and they'll continue to volunteer in the town, because what I am afraid of is that if we don't do this, we're gonna lose people. When we lose people, we're not gonna find the people to replace them. And I don't mean that in a I apologize, I don't have all my vocabulary lined up correctly. But I don't mean that in a defamatory way. I just mean that is that in a town that's doing what we're doing, we need to get as many people and keep as many people doing what they're doing. And so I understand the policy. My apologies, go right ahead.
That's quite all right. That actually goes right into an example that I can give you. Matt Sala, Finance Committee. One of my members is one of the owners of Health Express down on Route 18. If we did not have special municipal employee status, she would not be able to come before any boards to appeal for Health Express, for petitions, for any kind of permits or anything that they need from the town.
She would be able to.
Not representing Health Express.
She would.
That's what we have been told, is that
She would just run the risk of being, but she can do whatever.
Violation of state law.
No, it's not a violation of state law.
Sure it is. It's
Yeah,
a violation.
that's-
It's a violation.
Would you know the answer to this? Come on up, please, because
It doesn't escape at all.
Thank you again, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, well, the conflict of interest law is complex, to say the least, and obviously a lot of facts go into an individual determination. Generally speaking, if you are a public employee, you cannot represent a third party's interests in a matter in which your employer also has an interest. And so, in all likelihood, someone who sits on a town board who is not designated as a special municipal employee would likely be prohibited from appearing before town boards on behalf of their employer due to that conflict. Again, I'm not commenting on a particular situation, and the facts, play a major role in this. It's a complex law. It's difficult to apply, but that's one of the reasons why a position would seek special municipal status, is because those prohibitions against representing third parties are relaxed for special municipal employees.
So any employee of a said company, I mean, even if you don't have if you're not an owner of said company.
That's right, because it's a matter in which your employer has an interest.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. And just to sort of take that to the next step, our board has frequent turnover, and not having that status would definitely dissuade people from volunteering for the board.
Okay, all right, thank you, Matt. Bob?
I kind of agree. It's difficult.
Bob, name and address, please.
Bob Sopa, 30 Reed Street.
Thank you.
Planning board member. It's difficult to get people to volunteer to begin with. I agree this makes it a little easier for people to volunteer. I, for one, can't stay on the planning board if I don't get it. And we have an architect on the planning board that could possibly represent people in front of the town. I think the state did something good to try to make it easier for people to volunteer for different boards and committees. It makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. If you guys have questions for people up at the podium, please don't.
I'll have one when Sean
Okay.
finishes. I'll still have one when Sean finishes.
John Riley, 26 Russ Lane. I'm here asking for special municipal employee status for the position of moderator, deputy moderator, and school building. I could talk at length on this, but it's even confusing to me. But just to elaborate a little bit more on what Bob's saying and what you said, I think the example was given about Russ Wheatley, who was on the Tricentennial Committee, and someone said if he appears before a hearing in front of the planning board or the zoning board, that would be a violation. That's true. But even if he just stamped a plan and somebody else submitted that plan to the town for approval, that stamping of the plan is a violation of the state ethics law. Or if he called the town manager's office and asked, hey, or one of you guys, and asked you to support a vote for a permit. I gave the example of Jack Bailey, who was on the Tricentennial Committee. If the Tricentennial Committee wasn't a special municipal employee status, and Jack came here, like he does every year, and asked for a parade permit from the Board of Selectmen, that would be a violation of the state ethics law, because he's an employee on a town committee and then comes to a town board asking for a permit. Now, is someone going to call the ethics committee and write them up and be on the front page of the Enterprise? Hopefully not, but could it happen? Certainly, and that's one of the fears we all have, is none of us want to be on the front page of the newspaper. I've been a moderator, and I'm an elected moderator every 3 years. Townspeople know what I do. Yes, I represent legal clients, but I also represent the Greenway Boosters and the Hall of Fame Committee. I have to appear before the school committee at period and file forms for permits to use the building for the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't be able to do that unless I have these protections. If the moderator and deputy moderator is not given the continued status of special municipal employee, I'd have to resign tomorrow. And then you'd have an open position, you'd have no moderator, you'd have no deputy moderator, and we'd be walking into the next year's town meeting with nobody up there at the table. Literally, the town meeting members would have to take a vote to start the meeting, who's gonna run the meeting. It would just be chaos. It's one of the positions I chose because it's so limited. Even your policy, which I really hope you will update your policy, but your policy looks for people who set procedures or policy. Moderator doesn't set policy, I just run the meeting. The people vote. You guys determine what's on the agenda, the selectmen. The selectmen decide where the meeting is and what time the meeting is. I run the meeting. I'm not even allowed to vote at the meeting. I'm the only person in town, registered voter, who can't vote at a town meeting per our bylaws unless it's a tie. And to my knowledge, it's never happened since 1712. All I do is, the only authority I have is I appoint the finance committee. So as a special municipal employee, I'm not allowed to represent the boosters or a legal client or somebody else in front of the finance committee, which I would never have reason to do, so that's why I ran for moderator, because I could volunteer for my town in that position. I wouldn't run for selectman. It's probably a good thing, because then I can't be special municipal employee, and I would never be able to go to any other committee. And part of that is my livelihood, and part of it is because I just like volunteering for Abington. So I would hope that this board would continue, and again, I'm not sure that anything's changed in this position, and we've had this for quite some time. Please consider granting special municipal employee as broadly as possible, but at least on my behalf, moderator, deputy moderator, and school building authority. Thank you. School building committee.
Well, Sean, let me ask you a question. If you weren't the moderator, and I'm glad that you are on it, Tim.
Yes, you
Yeah,
talk about that all
yes.
the time.
But if you weren't, if it was somebody else that didn't do what you do, the things that you do,
Yep.
he or she may not need that, correct? And I guess
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
this is my question, Sean. And the gentleman mentioned somebody on the finance committee. It looks like we want to do, first I saw finance committee recording secretary. I don't think she owns that business. Maybe she does, I don't know. But then I see finance committee, so it's anybody on the finance committee. So, and I guess my question is, so we're going to, and I guess we might have to review this and may not vote on it tonight or whatever, but should that individual apply for that position to be the special municipal employee?
I wouldn't volunteer for this. Let's say this, most of the people, and you guys kind of alluded, most people who run for office in this town, like any other town, or volunteer for this town, wear many hats.
Yeah.
You get involved with Park and Rec because you started coaching at youth soccer level, and then you become an officer of youth soccer, and then you start, it just balloons. You stand up going to meetings, and you go to Park and Rec, and then all of a sudden, you're representing youth soccer in front of Park and Rec, or in front of the DPW because you want a field permit. Well, now you gotta be careful if you have some other position in town. If you're on a town committee or you're a town employee, and you just went and applied for a permit, just violated state ethics laws, unless your position was a special municipal employee. So I think we all agree that we want to attract as many volunteers and high quality, people who have experience, people who have professional backgrounds. The planning board's a great example where you have some people with professional backgrounds. The finance committee, we want people, I'd love to have financial managers on the finance committee, but, some of them don't have the time to do it, but I don't want to be able to have to turn them away. There was an example earlier of a woman who works for a business that sometimes has to apply for Board of Health permits, inspections, things like that. She's got to be careful.
So going back to my question, each person, I guess, is going to have to apply for this, not?
It goes to the board. If one person
Right.
from the board is
Goes to the
approved
person.
status, then that whole board gets the status.
Right, you're approving, for example, the planning board as a whole. You don't say Bob Soper of the planning board, the other four don't get it. You say planning board.
Okay, so if I'm seeing the finance committee recording secretary, I really shouldn't be looking at that.
I think she's doing it because she has multiple
The
jobs.
finance committee is not listed down here, actually.
She has 2 jobs in town. She
Right,
works in
yeah,
the trade, so
yeah.
she needs special employee in order to work that part-time position. So there's some people on there for slightly different reasons,
Right.
I think they should give it to.
but it's important. I mean, Joe mentioned, I got called by state ethics before saying, oh, I was told that we had a complaint, I think it was that I oversaw town meeting at a vote that affected me or my client somehow. And I said, I can give you the videotape of the meeting where I stepped down. I said, I actually was at the back of the hall, I didn't even vote, blah, 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 blah. And he said, all right, then you're good. But it's still scary when you get that phone call.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, you're like, what, did I forget something? So it's just a way for people to encourage people to run and protect them. I understand the board's feeling, I hate the word special municipal employee. But basically, as a special municipal employee, I am not allowed, none of us are allowed to represent any other town group or person or client in front of a committee that we are on or that we appoint. I can go to, or any one of us can go to any other committee. Bob Soper, who's a contractor, could go to the zoning board on behalf of a client if he wanted to, because he's not on the zoning board.
I can't even work at the library if I don't have it.
Yeah. So in most events, it's a good thing, but again, your policy, we can talk later about maybe tweaking the policy that, why do I have to come back here every year and say the same thing if the position hasn't changed? But maybe you can change it in the future, your policy, to say, if the board goes over your list and decides that we'd like to reconsider this position for some reason, then send a notice to that position and ask them to come in and talk. But you're sending notices to everybody and asking them to all reapply every year for the same reason. Just seems to be a lot of extra work for you guys, Dory, and for all the volunteers. That's a different argument, different discussion, but I hope you'll be generous, as the State Ethics Commission recommends. Your policy kind of doesn't say that, and I wish it could be corrected to be in line with what State Ethics Commission recommends. And frankly, if you take away my special municipal employee status, like knowing you, I mean, I can't serve the town. I don't, and I want to make it clear, I don't get paid by the town as a moderator, I don't get health insurance by the moderator, none of that, neither do the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, please, come on up, Greg. Sorry to...
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick note about procedure, just to clear things up. So if you make a designation of special municipal employee, you're making the designation as to a certain position, not as to an individual. And so that position would be considered a special municipal employee position, regardless of who holds it. Okay? According to the Ethics Commission, you should take a vote as to each position specifically that you intend to give this designation to, not just sort of a blanket to all positions that qualify. So I know that you have a list in front of you. You can probably shorthand it by saying all positions on this list, but I don't think you could make it as to all positions who qualify. The other thing that the Ethics Commission says is that once the designation is made, that designation remains until it's revoked. Okay, so I understand from listening here that you have a policy where you look at this anew every year. However, the Ethics Commission would look at this and require you to rescind a special municipal employee designation rather than just taking inaction. I think inaction would result in it staying the same. So, if you're not necessarily ready to vote on this here tonight, my opinion would be that that decision would not automatically revoke any designations that had previously been given. And so, you'd have the opportunity to take a further look at the list and go through the list one at a time if that's what you were inclined to do, and pick and choose. Or, as I said before, you can just go and designate everybody who's on that list.
Okay.
So in this, and I wasn't here in 16, are they,
All the people who got it in 16 have requested it in 18.
no, but what I'm saying is, did they get it in 16?
Yes.
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 So, if I understand you correctly, nothing would change.
That's right. So all those people got it in 16. They remain until you say they're off.
They remain not the person, the position.
The position, that's correct.
All right, that's what I wanted.
Your policy dictates that we have to reapply every year. And that if someone gets appointed a position, it actually says they have 10 days to apply. The law says you really don't need to do that, and it
Right.
requires us to do that. So I think we'd appreciate it if you took a vote to grant it again to us, so we can walk away from it knowing we've got it. And if you guys want to update your policy to conform to what your attorney just said, that'd be great.
But my understanding is you have it now,
Yes.
and it's not going away if we don't vote it tonight,
Unless you
Correct.
unless we rescind it tonight.
Right, and I can appreciate, Sean, that you want to leave here knowing that, it's been done, or that we voted on it. Personally, I'd like to review, maybe not yours or the finance committee, I'm looking at my own. Now I'm on the school building committee, do I want to be you know what I mean? Or am I granted, I'm not granted,
You
but.
don't get it.
Right, so, no, but,
A selectman can't get it, you used to have it.
Right.
When the town had less than
Right.
10,000 residents.
yeah.
But once you get over that, you can't have it.
Right. So, I mean, I personally, I'd like to review it. I don't have a problem, especially where I just heard from the attorney that you wouldn't be affected at all. Joe wouldn't be affected, finance, Mrs. Soper wouldn't be affected. That's me, but I'll wait to see what the board wants to do.
No offense, we don't have to come back for another meeting with this, it'd be great, but we'd like to be here to defend ourselves if it does continue
Oh,
forward.
yeah. No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And when you say defend yourself, no one's attacking any of you. All right, I just want to make that clear. I want to make that clear.
Position, not the man.
No, because we,
It's the position, not the person.
No, we all support our board of selectmen, we all love to work for the town and as volunteers, and we all love to continue.
Yeah, and I think you see, Bob brought this forward, because I probably forgot, but, I mean, this is a policy that the board has, so we're doing what we're supposed to do.
And I want to just point out that Andy Burbine, a fellow lawyer, is my guide when it comes to picking up the things we miss along the way. So the reason why we're here is Andy reminded me that I need to bring this back up
It's the
again.
gift that keeps giving.
Because I used to bring it up when I was sitting out there to them, so.
I agree.
Just a comment. I don't think
Please, Bob.
anybody that volunteers for a board, they all know where their loyalties lies for the town. They wouldn't be volunteering for the board.
No, I agree. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, okay.
Just
I'm
suggesting.
gonna keep my mouth shut.
Sorry.
All right, so, I guess your motion, you can withdraw that because it's basically invalid if you say every board in town, because we have to list them all. We don't have a list of them in front of us.
It's been made and seconded, I don't know if you want to
Okay, I'm sorry.
do that.
We can act on your motion if you want.
Yeah.
Should go on that.
What's the action? Could I hear that again? That was raised in second. What was your, granted to everybody, blank?
Grant it to everybody who's qualifies for it and be done with it. And then if we need to revoke it, we can revoke it.
So can I clarify on that statement? Are you saying that everyone who received it in 2016 should be granted it again?
Do we need to clean it up like that, or
Well, I'm just trying to be,
His motion is for every
every
board,
position?
committee, and official in town.
It's on this list, I think.
No.
It's
You're-
eligible.
I would recommend that,
I want to hear what you said, please.
I said there might be some new people on that list that weren't granted in 2016.
Oh, there definitely would be. Absolutely.
I just want to put everybody under the same umbrella. Everybody's protected.
I would like to take town council's recommendation, though. Just, I think we're on the same page here, but and go through each one.
You wanna do
And
each one
I know
individually?
what you're trying to do is try to be quicker, but I just think when we can follow town council's
Everybody on today's list
recommendation, that's
was,
smart.
everybody's on today's list was granted special municipal employee status in 2016.
That's
So if
this
no
list.
action happens,
Yes.
it will be 21 different categories.
But as Mr. Soper said, there are new people, but they,
Didn't
because
request
if
it.
they're on a board, Bob, right, they've been granted it.
If their board's
stays-
been granted it.
If their board has been granted, that's.
And I can read this, I can read the list who has it now, if you want to do that. I have no problem doing that.
I guess what I'm trying to do is whoever doesn't have it already, let's just get everybody under the same umbrella. Is it gonna be a problem if these people who already have it, if we vote it in again?
You would just be violating the Abington Board of Selectmen's policy, but
Well, policy, not a law.
what's the board's favor? What do you want to do?
I sort of agree with Tim, do them individually but vote on them, right? Tim, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we're all ready to vote.
These don't represent all the
Opinions
positions,
made up.
correct?
I just want to make sure we do it.
No, there's more positions in town that don't
This
have it.
doesn't, I'm just pointing out that this doesn't reflect all the positions in the town.
Right.
This just reflects the people that were granted it in 2016 and that were requesting it in 2018.
If somebody wanted, if one of these positions that aren't on here, we don't vote on tonight. and
They could come to us at any point in
At
time
any
and
time.
request for it.
Right,
That's
so, I
correct.
mean, these are the ones right now that have applied.
Okay.
We can take care of them tonight, And
You
then
don't-
if anybody
you-
else
By
wants,
doing nothing, you're taking care of them tonight.
that's fine. We can do that too, we can do that too.
Except for the ones that just applied, unless they're on a board that hasn't.
We actually, I don't think there's any,
No, every single person that applied in 2018
Is already on
Are you
16
referring to a certain board?
No, I'm
Okay.
not, I'm just in
Okay.
general.
I just checked them all off, everyone who
Right.
added 16
And-
was
and-
applying
And
again
I
18.
and I will, and I will,
Just want to make
I
sure
will
you're
li-
not leaving anybody out.
and I'll list them too.
yeah.
So,
Let's list them.
we do have a motion on the floor. Are you going to withdraw your second, or withdraw the motion, and, or do you want to?
I'll withdraw my second.
So, do we have, we don't need any motion, we can just, if nobody wants to make a motion, then it sits, the way it is now, and I'll read the list.
Say that again, Ken?
If nothing happens, the boards in 2016 that were voted special municipal employee status will still have that status. It's on your page of paper right here. That includes everybody on this list that requested this year, plus another 9 different categories. So if nothing gets done,
If nothing gets done, everybody's protected.
not everybody, but 21 different,
Yeah,
Everybody who has applied,
and more has, yeah. Anybody who has applied in the last 3 years is gonna get,
protected.
that's all.
and anybody else who wants it.
I will read that list, so if somebody's watching on TV, someone's in this room does not have it, that's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, if we do not vote tonight, it stays, that's what Greg...
As of
Oh,
2016.
don't be changing your tune, Greg.
the list that exists now for 2016.
I think we should do them individually,
Sorry.
and these people will be happy that are here.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, Mr. Chair. Is the list that you have in front of you, is everybody on that list previously designated as a special municipal employee?
From 2016.
2016?
Position.
Position,
Yes,
correct.
yes.
And there's nobody who applied this year who was not already on the list from 2016?
That's correct.
Okay, then yes, if you do nothing, all of those people remain.
Okay, and let me read that list for the board and for our viewers. Southfield Redevelopment Authority Advisory Board, fence viewer. Who's the fence viewer?
That's actually the DPW director.
Abington Cultural Council.
I didn't know that.
Council on Aging, Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee, Board of Library Trustees, Park and Recreation Commission. Is that still called that?
Yes, it
Planning Board, Registrar of Voters, Veterans Memorial, Finance Committee, Recording Secretary, Planning Board Secretary, Abington Representative on the Board of Directors of the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, Administrative to the Board of Selectmen, Zoning Board of Appeals and Conservation Commission, Summer Concerts Committee, School Building Committee, elected and voluntary members of the Abington Public Schools Councils at Abington High School, Frollo, Woodsdale, Beaverbrook, and Center Schools, Finance Committee, Griffin's Dairy Committee, Moderator and Deputy Moderator.
It's no longer Frollo School, it's now Abington Middle School.
Okay, I think it's kind of assumed though, but yeah, I think that would be all right. So is the board okay with just letting sleeping dogs lie? Do we want to take a vote on it? Do we not want to take a vote on it?
I recommend that, well, I'm going to make a motion to vote on the 2016 list that was just read with the caveat that the Folio School be now named as the Abington Middle School. Other than that we allow special municipal status to all those that were just read.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is that motion satisfactory to town council? It is.
Is it satisfactory to the people that are in the audience? I'm going to ask that, so, thank you.
Okay, no further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll still take public comment if anybody else wants to talk about something else. Approval of June 11, 2018, open session minutes.
Everyone read this? Yep. Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
We were all present, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. We have before us a request. I am writing this letter on behalf of the St. Bridget's Parents Teacher Organization to request permission to hold the 5th annual St. Bridget's School PTO Freaky Friday race on Saturday, October 20th, 2018. 3.1 mile route ending on Central Street. They've done this 4 years in the past. They've reached out to Chief Medinsky and Chief Nuttall, who are in support of holding the race. Here.
The chief.
Yep, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to allow for the, St. Bridget's request for road race on October 20th, 2018, as submitted.
Second?
Kenny, that request was made by a family member of mine, so I'm going to recuse myself on that vote.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And one abstention?
Correct.
No opposition, 4. Ames Knoll request for master planning funding through environmental bond bill. This is something that I had asked the town manager to put on the agenda. Rick?
Yes, the letter here to Senator Keenan, actually a suggestion by Mr. Collins on the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Collins, from the planning board.
And I know the planning board has also taken a vote to support this. As you know, the Ames Knoll has not in any way been dealt with from a planning standpoint, probably in generations at least. I know that those that visit it will tell you that, there's, the trails are rather depleted at this point. Whether it's signage or, facilities like picnic tables, grills, whatever. It's a park that's been neglected for some time versus some of the other parks in the state, some of them not that far from us. So what this is asking for is for Senator Keenan to include in the environmental bond bill funding to do a master plan of that park. Future resources may need to be devoted by the state in terms of, the actual investment, but for now, just merely seeking some funding for a master plan is what has been suggested by Mr. Collins. And as you know, I discussed it with the chairman of the board, due to the timeliness that was required here. I did send this in, obviously, between selectmen's meetings, and I know they say the planning board has also voted now to support this.
Okay. Rick, did you want to speak on this at all, or? And I will apologize to the board because I received notice of this, and I know we didn't have a meeting scheduled, and it was 4th of July, so I just wanted to move it forward. I didn't think the board would have a problem with that. It's kind of, dictatorially done, but, All right, go ahead.
Rick Collins, 74 Orange Street, member of the Abington Planning Board. Anyone who's been up to Ames Knoll knows that its condition is getting worse through a lack of investment from the state. Trails are becoming overrun. The public amenities that were once there, the outdoor grilling sets, picnic tables, all of that is being broken. Play areas are overgrown. There's no signs. So there's all those problems that are growing up, and as a result, it's becoming less family friendly. On top of that, we have added number of acres on the northern end of the park. I don't know the exact number, but we're talking dozens and dozens of acres, the old Porricky estate. And so now, where the trail is currently dead end on both sides of Cleveland Pond, there might actually be lands enough on the north end to make a complete trail around it. In addition, with the acquiring of that land at the north end of the pond, there is the ability to discuss, and not to definitely do, but at least to discuss whether or not we want to move the main entrance off Linwood and on to Chestnut Street, where you have better access to higher vehicle traffic. It's not going directly through a residential neighborhood. That piece is actually in our open space master plan, was to consider relocating the main entrance to the park. So with all of that, we just want the state to say, let's start master planning what we want to see at Ames Knoll for improvements, and then go forward and move forward with funding to make that happen. It's been basically neglected for too long, and we need to start to show an interest in it. My understanding, and if I'm stepping on your toes, I apologize, it was included in the Senate version of the bond bill that passed. The earmarks are $500,000 and a master plan for Ames Knoll State Park. Anyone who's familiar with the bonding process on Beacon Hill knows that's not a guarantee of the money, but more it's an allowance that if the state wants to spend that money, they can. It's a little bit of bureaucracy, language that they use. Whether or not it'll be in the final bill that the governor signs is a whole other discussion. They still have to have. The House and Senate are kind of at war with each other right now. At the very least, though, this is a signal that Abington wants something done with Ames Knoll State Park. That it's been too long since it's been money invested, it's been neglected, it's getting dangerous, and we want something done with Ames Knoll State Park. My request to the board moving forward is kind of two things. The best thing that we can do right now is to start putting together essentially a request on our end as to what we'd like to see up there. So a small working group to essentially document the current conditions, the narrow trails, the trash, everything that's broken, and start to maybe talk to the residents that are up there and the neighbors, how we can make this a better place for all of us to go up and enjoy. That way, when we do start to ask the state for help with this, we can essentially give them a document that says, this is what's there, this is what we like to talk about, how can we make this happen?
Rick, do you have anything to add to that? Or?
No, other than, like Rick said, you know, it's not a done deal. I think just because Senator Keenan is included in the environmental bond bill, it still does have quite a process to go through, but it's the first step. It's the first step. Without this, there'll never be any investment by the state.
Even if hypothetically this was to be stripped out of the final version, there's still the ability for the town to request a meeting with DCR and say, look, we want this to happen. So this, if it's stripped out, it doesn't preclude anything from happening, but including this in the bond bill sends a strong message to DCR and the state that this is a priority for the town of Abington for environmental bond spending.
Does DCR still owe us money for the land they bought?
Well, it hasn't technically been purchased yet,
Okay.
so, but
Might
they
be
are
another way to
holding-
bring 'em in before
They are
us, too.
holding funds, yeah. The issue is tracking down the heirs of the property in, actually, I think it was the Ukraine, I think is where getting signatures is tough.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation on, a makeup of a board? Is that what you're...
I'm more than, since I'm bringing it up, I'm more than willing to help out with it. I've spoken with Chris Schultz as the head of the Boy Scouts. He's willing to help out with it. I imagine there should be somebody from one of the neighborhoods nearby. I don't know if someone from Parks and Rec wants to be involved, conservation. I'm open to suggestions, but I think maybe to keep it small to start, and then as things go along and as we head maybe more towards a Friends of Ames Knoll State Park, we can make it a little bit bigger.
Okay. Why don't we put that on the agenda for our next meeting to set up a board, and we'll come up with a makeup with the recommendations, probably that you just did, and we'll advertise at that point. We'll vote and advertise for board sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
And I guess I'd like a formal vote from the board to send this letter that was already sent.
Vote to support the letter that was already sent.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Town manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a few brief things here. First, the treasurer collector has announced that the office has made electronic billing and auto pay available for real estate and personal property. This has been a service that many residents have requested, and now that, you may recall, last year we updated our financial management software, and this allows for that. Don't contact the Selectmen's office with any questions, contact the treasurer collector's office.
On that regard, is there any future water and sewer bills being accepted online too? Is there any, is that in the
Is that part of the
future?
e-billing? Do you know that, Sue?
In the,
It's not yet.
No, I know it isn't now,
Yeah,
but
we
it-
can, I will let you know.
That would be greatly appreciated.
We'll update you on that, yes. So, the town charter, as you may recall, there was some glitches, technical glitches having to do with dates, primarily to do with the incorporation of the Department of Public Works that had been adopted by special act previously. So there were some technical corrections that were necessary. That has now been completed. So the town charter is in its final form after the last update, 10-year update. And the North Quincy Chestnut Street, Boundary Street intersection, it's interesting, I actually got a call on this the other day, and we received notice almost immediately following that the 75% design submittal for a proposed roundabout at that intersection has been made to the Department of Transportation. The goal would be to get this on the tip list for advertising in 2019, and hopefully for construction sometime in 2020. I'm sure some of you have interest in the Complete Streets program. I know there was issues or opportunities brought up when Mr. Stone and his engineers came in. The town has been awarded funding of $37,000 under that program. It's for our first submission for the purposes of designing a project. That project is still to be determined, but this is news, this $37,000 grant award. And finally, the Island Grove Bridge. Last year, it's the funding for the CPC was kind of slipped through the cracks because there wasn't any specific board or committee working with it. We have drafted an RFP under this year's program for engineering services to evaluate that. And right now, it's in the hands of town council for a cursory review, simply because we've never done an RFP like this before. So that's also moving forward.
On that Complete Streets program, that is, and let me just jog my memory, they weren't here before, that is for the town to plan to accommodate less car traffic, but more walking and bicycling and that sort of stuff.
That's part of
So
the goal.
now, is there a list that the town has, do we have to make a list of priority projects? In other words, everybody wants sidewalks, this town, has an issue with sidewalks on a lot of towns, a lot of streets. Is that, is there a you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting $37,000. Is that to do the plan, or is that to do an actual project?
That's to design a project.
To design a project?
Yes, yes.
Do we know what that project is going
I
to be?
can't tell you at this time. That's it. Well, it's not that I'm
You'll have to
holding
tell
out.
me.
I don't have the information just yet. This is the first step along the way.
So now, who would prioritize that? Would be that DPW would come up with? Okay.
DPW would prioritize, correct, right. And as you know, there's a road inventory priority list, but this is different than that, yes.
Right, this wouldn't be for roads, this would be, well, it
Correct.
could be for
Could be for bike paths, sidewalks, bike paths, those things that make it
sidewalks is
a
the key
more
word, okay.
pedestrian-friendly town.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up tonight before we go into executive session? All right, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session and not to return to open session for the purpose of a litigation update pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A and 3, to discuss the following pending cases as an open session will have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. And I have to list them all, okay. Board of Health versus Montron, Southeastern Housing Court, docket number. Okay, Hitchcock versus Zoning Board of Appeals, Land Court case. Building Commissioner versus Carter, Land Court. Building Commissioner versus Moriarty, Land Court. J.O.P. Pereira de Arujo versus Abington Police Department, Civil Service Commission docket. Wayne Page versus Town of Abington Department of Labor Relations. Gentile versus Town of Abington, Plymouth Superior Court. That is the motion.
Motion to enter executive session as stated.
Okay.
Second?
Do we have a second? Need a roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Chairman says yes. Thank you. Good night.
4-minute break?
Sure.
How long?
4. Go. Give you enough time to go.
7
Thank
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry.
Wasn't that fun?
Motion for 7-minute break?
Weren't you glad he came?
Very glad. Not